Television. Programming that keeps you informed about the services and activities of your county government.
Hello and welcome to Beyond Today, the program that addresses the future of our community through conversations with people who are working today for a better tomorrow. I'm Ray Shermonte, your host for Beyond Today and Assistant Executive Director for the Hillsborough County City-County Planning Commission. Today we're going to focus on efforts both in unincorporated county and the city of Tampa. First we have Lorraine Duffy, who is a planning manager for unincorporated Hillsborough County, and we're going to talk about the comprehensive plan. Welcome, Lorraine, to the show. Before we get into the comprehensive plan, I'd like to ask you a little bit of how you became a planner and how you became interested in planning.
Well, I went to University of South Florida and I received my degree in political science, and while I was attending school there was one course on planning, and I just took it as part of the requirements and found I had a real interest in it. The physical locations of buildings in the community was something that even as a small child I was interested in, and I always enjoyed looking at maps of communities as we traveled around the country, and it seemed like it was a good fit. So after completing my degree, I also did an internship at the Planning Commission, and I came aboard several years later after a short stint as a computer operator.
So if there's any young children out there that have a perchance for interest in maps, they might consider planning?
Good, it's a good connection.
Well, what I wanted to ask you about was our comprehensive plan. I guess we've been working on a comprehensive plan for at least 10 years now, and I'd like to talk a little bit about where we are now and where we've come from. Where are we now in the comprehensive planning process?
Well, as you're aware, back in 1985, the state of Florida passed a Growth Management Act, and Hillsborough County adopted its first comprehensive plan in 1989 under that act. We've gone through a series of updates of the plan. Most recently was completed in December of 1998. As part of that update, we've refined our urban service area concept that's in the comprehensive plan, which is really our growth management strategy. That is, how are we going to grow as a community, not just haphazardly all over the county, but in a more directed fashion in maximizing the use of the infrastructure and the tax dollars that the county collects each year. So we have implemented those amendments and adopted them that really refines that concept. The next step is to come up with an implementation strategy, and that is to get the land development regulations in tune with those new amendments to our plan. There's presently work being conducted on that front as well.
Lorraine, there seems to be kind of a new interest in planning that I've noticed as a professional in the last 2 or 3 years. It almost seems to be a political issue now. Why do you think that's happening, or what's going on in our communities that are causing people to seem to want a better planned community or better neighborhoods?
I think there's a lot of social disconnect people have felt with their communities over the past few years. We've been growing, as you know, as a country we've been growing, but Hillsborough County has also been growing, and you have a lot of large suburbs, and a lot of people are feeling not a connection to their community as they used to in the past, maybe in the areas that they've grown up to. So you've been hearing a lot of talk about smart growth, because growth is expensive and people are trying to make the most of their tax dollars, but they also want to have a better product to choose from when they're looking. So you hear a lot of, even at the national level, a lot of talk about smart growth and creating a sense of community, and I think that's what's really pulling people to reevaluate how our communities have been growing.
When we talk about smart growth, I know that word is used a lot. How would you define smart growth?
I think smart growth really is where you use the infrastructure that, now when I say infrastructure, I guess I should clarify, and that's the tax monies that are spent towards the basic services that a community needs: water service, sewer service, road service, schools, parks, emergency services. Use those to the fullest benefit, and also retain some lands, because of course we have a strong agricultural base in this country to feed us and to feed every other country. Smart growth really balances some of the agricultural interests and some of the development and, I guess you call them, more urban interests, creating communities that people find to be more livable for themselves.
Do you foresee agriculture as remaining a viable part of Hillsborough County's economy in the future?
Oh, I think very much so. Agriculture is very important to Hillsborough County's economy now. It has been in the past. I think agriculture in Hillsborough County is also really becoming much smarter. And that is less land intensive, and also putting a greater emphasis on those commodities that can be transported more easily, things such as nursery plants. Of course, we have a very strong aquaculture and tropical fish business here, and strawberries, of course, are very important.
So you see those continuing in the future?
Yeah, and we've actually been working on some projects with the Agricultural Economic Development Council and tracking agricultural in Hillsborough County, and it's getting stronger over the years, and as I said, it's getting smarter in the types of commodities that we're producing here.
What kind of changes have we seen in the plan over the last 10 years? I know some people criticize that their feeling is that growth is becoming more and more out of control, but how has the plan dealt with that issue? How is it different now than it was, say, 10 years ago?
Well, the very first plan that was prepared under the Growth Management Act was very policy driven, and it was more of a checklist approach. It didn't have a vision, which in 1992, I believe, we adopted a vision into our plan, which highlighted 13 areas that we conducted extensive interviews with people in the community. So that's the first thing. We created a vision and adopted that. The board adopted that into their plan. Second, there's been more of an approach towards strategic implementation rather than just a checklist. Did we address environmental? Did we address capital improvements? As to how those components integrate into each other, and then how you use those to get to the type of community you want in the future. I think a lot of people, if you follow this, you see a lot of changes, and you know it's frustrating because it's supposed to be a long-range plan. But by law, it's designed to change every 5 years. Is a requirement to evaluate it every 5 years, and twice a year you're allowed to privately initiate an amendment on your own property. So it's not a static document that just will sit still. It's dynamic, it changes, and it reflects changes in trends as they come along. The idea is to set a course and then try to stick to that course in a broad concept, but certainly has room for changes as time goes on.
So do you ever really finish a plan? Is it done? It doesn't sound like it to me.
Well, I've been at the Planning Commission 14 years, and we've been working on a 20-year plan, and I can say the plan we started with 14 years ago, which was not under the Growth Management Act, is a much different product that we have today as our comprehensive plan. So it's an ongoing process, and as the people in the community change, so will the plan change. It's what people's vision of the community is, and it should reflect that.
You talked a little bit about the urban service area. I'd like to go into that a little more. What is the basic idea of the urban service area?
The urban service area was first put into our plan in the beginning of 1993, and it generally delineates where we expect to have and plan for suburban, urban type of growth to occur in the county. And that would incorporate your communities such as Town and Country and Carrollwood and Ruskin and Brandon, some of the larger communities, Apollo Beach, Sun City Center. All of these suburban, urban communities are in our urban service area. The areas that are outside the urban service area are areas that are predominantly rural, or they're incorporated, such as Plant City or Temple Terrace. They're not part under the jurisdiction of the Board of County Commissioners from a planning standpoint. The concept has been refined over the last few years, and that is to try to direct growth and give more incentive for development to occur inside those boundaries so that growth happens in a logical and more cost-effective way. It is very expensive to run very long roadways out to the rural parts of the county to maintain them. I mean, even if someone builds that line for the county, somebody has to maintain it and pay for the upkeep. If you have large growth outside your urban service area, you still have to provide fire, sheriff, and parks and staff those in libraries. So the urban service area really is trying to direct growth into those areas where some of those services are already available and try to maximize those.
Now, there's a process where the plan can be amended by private individuals. Is that correct?
That's correct.
What do you see the trends? I know we have some amendments that have come in. What is the trends now in the plan amendments?
Well, interestingly, since we were doing our evaluation report, since 1996, we have been unable to process amendments to the plan. And just recently, we've been able to start processing amendments from individuals. And there has been a strong I guess, proposals from people to try to increase the densities, primarily inside our urban service areas. Several infill, what we call infill, where someone tries to raise densities in an area that might otherwise be developed surrounding them. We've had a couple of requests around the new Citrus Park Mall for increases in density for multifamily development. And we've had a few requests for outside our urban service area, trying to stretch those boundaries further to the eastern part of the county. But overall, most of those requests really fall inside our urban service area. A particular property owner has an interest in a particular type of use, and maybe the existing comp plan doesn't allow them to do the use that they're interested in putting on the site.
Now, do you feel as a planner that you're more sympathetic, I guess, to requests for density increases within the urban service area than outside? Or how do you view those requests?
Well, we do a careful study of them. You can't just say, just because it's an increase in density inside the urban service area, that it's approvable. Ideally, of course, that's what you would be looking for, though, is to have more development inside the urban service area. But we also have to balance that against the existing community that's out there. And that's why there's a very strong public participation component. We try to get the word out to the citizens in the area that there is a request in their community, and have them be able to appear before the Planning Commission and before the Board of County Commissioners and let known what their interest is in their community. But clearly our goal really is to try to contain the growth inside our urban service area.
So the citizens definitely have a role in this growth plan also, not just the planners.
Oh, in fact, the law was designed specifically to require public participation, but in Hillsborough County we actually go beyond what the law requires, sending out additional notices, posting signs on the property, many times putting ads in the newspapers that are much larger than the law would require us, and of course using forums like this right here and HTV to let people know when upcoming meetings are occurring.
And I believe there's some neighborhood plans and community plans that are being worked on also.
That's true. Another part of the long-range planning process is a community planning process, and that's where we look at smaller parts of the county, such as Lutz and Keystone, that we are working on right now, community planning, and of course there's a project going on in the northwest part of the county. And I think the Nonasassa is having a community plan. And that's where you look at a smaller area, and hopefully you have a strong group of citizens who are very interested in participating with you in telling you specifically the direction of their community, not in generalities, but really more specifically what they want their community to look like.
Well, Lorraine, I'd like to thank you for being on the show today and kind of bringing us a little bit up to date on the comprehensive plan. When we return, we'll have Ron Rotella, special consultant to the mayor for the city of Tampa, to talk about Tampa planning efforts. Welcome back to Beyond Today. With us today we have Ron Rotella, special consultant to the mayor. There's a lot of activity in the city lately, Ron, and I wanted to kind of go over some of it because I think it has planning implications. We talked about the county in our last half with Lorraine Duffy, but I wanted to talk about the city. I see a trend in redevelopment. Am I fooling myself, or do we really have some things happening in the city now?
Yeah, you know, the development booms of the past. We had a big boom out in West Shore some years back, and then West Shore cooled down and the downtown picked up. But what's unusual about the development pattern right now in the city is it's pretty much citywide. You have redevelopment going on in South Tampa. You have, of course, the New Tampa area experiencing a lot of growth, downtown, Ybor City, West Shore. It's pretty uniform across the board.
That's great. It's good to see that as a planner because it's something I think everybody's been working for a while. But I get that same sense. Now let's maybe go on a little tour around the city and talk about what's going on in the different areas. I'd like to start, I guess, with downtown, because as I look out my window, I'm seeing a lot of activity. I know there was a perception that downtown was losing employees, but I really don't believe that that's correct.
No, right now downtown is pretty stable. There's a lot of focus on the waterfront right now with the new Marriott Hotel. The streetcar project is underway. The cars are under construction right now.
Now, what exactly is that going to connect so people understand the purpose of that
the streetcar project, which will be patterned after the historic streetcar line with the overhead electric lines and the old Bernie cars, that'll connect the Convention Center Hotel to Ybor City along Channelside Drive. So it'll connect the Convention Center and the Convention Center Hotel, the cruise ship terminals, the aquarium, all along the port into Ybor City. It's 2.5 miles.
And there'll be stops at all those different attractions along the way.
Right now there's 11 planned stops along the line at the major attractions.
Now, when can we expect to see actual construction on that start?
Our timing is to complete the design, go out for bids in November, start construction right after the first of the year, and hopefully have the line up and running in time for when we host Super Bowl 2001.
So that's a pretty quick construction schedule.
Yeah. The construction schedule is not that difficult. The relocation of utilities is going to be a major, complex undertaking.
Now, will that trolley run in the street, or does it have its own right of way?
No, it runs within the street. It has to observe all the traffic signals that vehicles do. And it's the historic line with the overhead cables and the old refurbished streetcars.
Well, it sounds like it'll also be not only transportation, but a tourist draw also.
Yeah, it'll be a destination. Hopefully, just like the streetcars in some of the other cities, Memphis and of course the famous streetcar line in San Francisco.
Now, we have also Harbor Island downtown. A lot of people think that Harbor Island wasn't a success because of the retail, but there's really a lot more to Harbor Island than just that retail center, I believe.
Yeah, in fact, the last parcel to be developed is sold and is now under construction, and that's Post Properties going with their project, and that's the last available parcel. Of course, the residential component of Harbor Island just took off about 3 years ago.
How many people do you think will be living on Harbor Island when it's complete?
You'll have 4,000 or 5,000 people living on Harbor Island.
Right adjacent to downtown.
Immediately adjacent to downtown.
Great. Now, is there any other big projects? I know we recently had the Federal Building constructed. Any other large buildings coming up in the near future?
Not any large private buildings. There's talk of an amphitheater downtown. The Port Authority just announced a hotel on its property, actually a combination hotel condominium. Of course, you have the Steiner Sembler project underway in Ybor City. Camden broke ground on their residential units.
That's an apartment complex in Ybor?
Apartment complex in Ybor City.
How many units will be part of that?
400 plus units.
So it's quite large.
It's a major project.
Now, where is that located in Ybor City?
Generally on the east end of Ybor City, around Palm Avenue.
Okay. Between
17th and 19th Street, in that area.
Around, I guess, north of the Italian Club, that area.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And then, you have the Soho district prospering, where you had virtually very few retail and few restaurants along there. Now you have 28 restaurants.
Now, for our county viewers, Soho is...
I'm sorry. The Soho district is the South Howard Avenue strip between Kennedy Boulevard and Bayshore, which is becoming a restaurant destination in its own right. We're getting ready to go in there with brick crosswalks and landscaping to complement the restaurant activity underway. Of course, we continue to focus on Bayshore Boulevard. What a beautiful amenity that is for the entire city. A new building underway in West Shore. You've got Duke Power with their subsidiary, which is Crescent Properties, building a 400,000 square foot office building right on Spruce and West Shore. They're getting ready to do a second building. You have the Taubman Mall under construction now.
Now, when is that going to start, or has it?
For people that have been in and out of Denver, the mall taking place now in West Shore will be similar to the Cherry Creek Mall in Denver.
Okay, I have been to that mall.
And of course, the anchor tenants most people are aware of. You have Nordstrom's and Neiman Marcus and Lord & Taylor. Who would have thought 15 years ago that Tampa would have had a Saks Fifth Avenue and that level of retail in Tampa?
Having been here a long time, I know you mentioned you've been here since 1956. It is hard to fathom what's happening.
Yeah, when I moved to Tampa in '56, the population of Tampa and Hillsborough County was 70-something thousand. Now the population of Hillsborough County and Tampa combined is just under 1 million. You look at Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater, it's 2.5 million. What are we, the 14th largest TV market in the United States? A lot of development occurring.
It's hard, I think, for people to adjust to the reality that we are very rapidly becoming a major city in this country, beyond what a lot of people that have lived here a long time would have ever thought.
Right. And when you think about the influx of people, I do this quite frequently. Whenever we have a luncheon or a number of people gathered, I ask how many people were not here 15 years ago, and typically about 50% of the people present will raise their hands.
That's an interesting exercise. I could see where that's telling even for the people involved.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you mentioned that mall now. Is that breaking ground now, the new?
Yeah, it's under construction right now.
Great. Okay, I didn't realize that. So it's already started, and those stores are definitely coming.
That's a done deal. It's under construction. West Shore Plaza, they're proceeding with additional retail and a movie complex. For people that have been around Tampa, Hillsborough County a long time, there used to be a movie on the corner of the Cypress and West Shore that Al Austin had leased out, and then he took that down to build the Marriott Hotel. So we'll now have a 16-18 theater complex in the West Shore Business District.
There's quite a number of movies opening all over. I guess there are some that are going to open downtown, I believe, also.
There's movies opening in conjunction with the Hogan Burt project, which is the cruise ship terminal with about 250,000 square feet of retail. Of course, the cruise ship industry is just exploding in Tampa. Will increase from 400 to 600,000.
Are we getting any new ships now? How many do we have at this point?
Of course, the new Sensation, which I was privileged to sail on, that's 2,300 passengers. And of course, you've seen that docked downtown. That it's like a skyscraper when it comes sailing in the port. And then Carnival's getting ready to bring in another new ship this fall.
And actually, there's talk about the aircraft carrier project that's going on?
Correct. That will go into the port area.
So that could be another big tourist draw for Tampa.
Yeah, major another tourist destination.
Now, the South Tampa area, south of Kennedy, there's a lot of redevelopment going on in that area?
What's happened is a lot of infill. If you look at south of Kennedy Boulevard, the demographics of that neighborhood, it is probably one of the most stable neighborhoods in Hillsborough County. And lots of very hard to find. People are buying older homes built in the 50s, taking those homes down and replacing it with a newer home. Same thing on Davis Island. Lots are a premium in South Tampa. And so, waterfront lots are virtually unheard of.
So everything's getting scarce and I guess more expensive because of that.
Yes, certainly. You know, a lot on the water. Well, the lots on Harbor Island on the water, the last remaining lots were selling for $500,000 and $600,000. It's hard to believe.
To imagine.
Yeah, that people would pay $500,000, $600,000 just for a lot.
Well, I guess another area that's kind of picking up is the university area.
That whole university area itself, Busch Gardens, with its addition of themes, they're getting ready to open their new wooden roller coaster. They continue to reinvest in Busch Gardens. Of course, the university complex itself is up for expansion, and then the whole New Tampa area is really blossoming, and the growth out there is quality growth. We're very concerned about Bruce B. Downs, and that it not turn into another arterial with curb cuts every few feet and a lot of signage, so there's a real focus on the aesthetic quality of the development out there.
So you see that area continuing to grow then over the next 10 or 20 years?
Yeah, exactly. Well, within Tampa you have infill development, but our real growth area is the New Tampa area.
Now, I know the mayor has some ideas for revitalizing other parts of the city, like Tampa Heights. Can you tell us a little bit about that project?
Yeah, Tampa Heights and East Tampa is a major initiative of this administration. Mayor Greco, early in his administration, set the pattern for us to start looking at some of our older neighborhoods and looking at the redevelopment of those neighborhoods. And Tampa Heights, with some of its beautiful historic structures, A lot of renovation underway in Tampa Heights and in Seminole Heights. And now we have a very exciting project, 70 acres, immediately adjacent to downtown, which most people refer to as the old police station site. We'll be going out for request proposals to redevelop that 70 acres.
And what's your time frame on that for requesting proposals?
Going out for an RFP in July of this year.
So we should hear something then about interested developers.
Most certainly.
Now you touched upon a little bit about East Tampa. What is happening in East Tampa, or what would we like to happen?
Well, there was a real emphasis on the mayor putting additional people on in the Parks Department to come up with a need team and a focus on getting in and cleaning up the area, cleaning up lots, cleaning up the public rights of way. And then recently we went in and condemned a number of properties. There are 1,400 lots right now that are in the process of being cleaned up. So there's a real focus on preparing East Tampa to redevelop just as Tampa Heights and Seminole Heights is redeveloping.
Well, that's great. That should help a lot. Well, Ron, I'd like to thank you for being on the show today, and thank you for joining us today.